Hello everyone. Thank you for watching the video, and I'm pretty sure the time that you're going to spend here today it will add to your knowledge bucket. So today we are going to discuss about the sequences. Uh, this is predominantly with respect to Oracle, but sequences are used in other relational databases also, which is also quite similar in the syntax and the working also. So what is a sequence? Sequence is if to generate a sequence of number. So auto numbering or the identity columns that we generally have, as far especially for the ID columns, the primary key columns that we have. So that is where we use the sequences. So this is the syntax of the sequence in Oracle. So you have the sequence name here. You provide the starting point or the starting number of the sequence. Then after the starting number, then what is the interval? Okay, that it should increment. It can be any number, 1, 2, 3, but it has to be less than the mean max minus mean value. And what is the max value? That is where the sequence would end, or it would recycle, or it would cycle to the first value. And the mean value is the first value that it would go to the it would start actually, the minimum value. Then there is a cycle and no cycle. Cycle means so suppose the max value of a sequence is say 10. So after the 10th, it will again go to the mean value. So that's the cycle. And when we say no cycle, that means it will not go further. It will end itself there itself. Cache is you provide the cache size. Caching is generally useful, especially in case of insertion, heavy insertion cases. Okay, so the by default number is around 20, but uh, in many cases where say there is a bulk insert which is happening at a very high speed. Okay, so there are huge number of inserts which are happening. So that if get fetching the value of the sequence is also kind of a network switch. So that can be avoided if the value is cached in the first call itself. So suppose the starting number is 1 and I'm caching 100 values. So when I do a select sequence, then I'll have 1 to 100 values. So that's what the caching does. So it helps in the performance optimization. And order and order is especially in the rack related, where we want the ordering to be maintained. So that's the overall syntax of sequence. Next we will move on to the examples, where we will look into the ascending sequences and the descending sequences. So we'll look into the first example of sequence, and this would be an ascending sequence. Why it is ascending? Because it is incremented by a positive value. So it will start with the smallest number, and then it will keep on incrementing in the ascending order. So that is why it's an ascending sequence. So simply you can say that the increment is by a positive number, then it becomes an ascending sequence. So and here the max value will always be greater than the mean value, and then like we had seen, the cache value is 20. So first I'll create the sequence here. So I'm starting with 1, okay, and then increment is by 1. Now we'll just fetch the value of sequence here. So we use next well, and we would get the next value of the sequence. So it is the first value, that is 1. And if I increment here to 3, 4, in this way it will keep incrementing, okay, till 9999. And by default it's a no cycle sequence because I have not mentioned anything. So if I want a cycle, then I need to mention here cycle. So that is the ascending sequence. You can also get the current value of the sequence using this similar syntax, but here you would use curvel. What is the difference between next well and curvel? Next well will get the value of the sequence, that is basically to increment the value of the sequence and give you the output. Curvel will not increment, it will just show the current value. So that's the difference. So we'll look into the first example of sequence, and this would be an ascending sequence. Why it is ascending? Because it is incremented by a positive value. So it will start with the smallest number, and then it will keep on incrementing in the ascending order. So that is why it's an ascending sequence. So simply you can say that the increment. So, okay, we'll look into the descending sequence now. So here is the example of descending sequence. So when I say descending sequence, so it will increment in the opposite direction. That is, the increment by would be a negative number. It could be -1, -2, anything. Okay, your max value and the mean value. Okay, it will start with the max value. Okay, that's important. in ascending the start would be the mean value, in descending the start would be the max value. Just keep this in mind, and the mean value could be anything negative number that we want. And again, so I'll just create this, and we'll just try to I'm not showing the current value because it's not working on this live SQL, but you can use it in your environment. It should work. So here you can see it starts with 10. This is the first value that I have fetched from sequence. Now, okay, because I had cache 2 value, cache is 2, that is why it came out as 2. So it is decrementing now. Again, decrement by minus 1, 6, right? So in this way, you could say it is decrementing here. See. So this is the descending sequence. It will start from the higher number and then go to the lowest number. So this is all about ascending and descending sequences. The next part that we can also check what is the metadata of a sequence. Okay, so if you're not aware, in Oracle we have data dictionary views. So if I want to check for the user which I'm logged in, what are the sequences, I would use user underscore sequences for all the user, the ones that I have created plus the ones that I have access to. Those would go into all underscore sequences, and db underscore sequences is for the whole system. So here I am just checking for my, so I have created these two sequences which we had seen, my sequence ascending and my sequence descending. Where you can see the mean value, max value, everything is available in this uh, data dictionary view, and you can get any kind of information from this user underscore sequences view. Now I want to alter the sequence. Okay, I want to make some changes to the sequence that I have made. Okay, so how do I do that? So I've just copied few syntaxes here. We'll go through it. So now the current and the next value of the ascending sequence, my sequence ascending, is 24. Suppose I want to restart or change the number, that is the next value. When I get, it should start with 5. So how can I do it? It's very simple syntax here now. Alter sequence name, you just use the keyword restart and whatever value that you want to start with. So that's all you would need to do. So I'll just run this statement. Okay, the sequence is altered. I'll just show you the user underscore sequences. What is the, see, the last number is 5 now. Okay, and now if I run this next value and the current value, see, it starts with 5. The earlier value was 24. So we were able to restart or move the sequence to 5. Okay, although it had moved to 24. So in this way you can reset the sequence. The other option is obviously to drop the sequence and recreate it, but then it would involve, like, there would be some invalid objects because of that, and then all those things that you need to take care. So that's about the resetting the sequence number. Now the other options that you could do is like the mean value here, it's 1, right? I need to make it 10. So I want the increment to happen by 10. The cache value, okay, it's 20, then I am keeping it same, or say I want to make it 10. The max value is like 999, like I want to make it 500. So all these can be easily done. Let me just change the minimum value to 4, because since the current value is not 10, it will give me error. So I'll execute this. Again, the sequence is altered, and if I go here, now if you look at the metadata or the information about the sequence, the mean value is 4, max value is 500, increment by 10. No cycle, we have not changed anything about that. Cache size from 20 to 10, right? Now the last number is 15 because of the cache value. The current value is 5 plus 10, 15. So that's how it is. Okay, I hope the alter sequence is clear. Now we'll move on to the another concept, which is quite a new concept in a way from 11G, which is about the identity column. So instead of the sequence number that we used to we would earlier it was like we would first create the sequence and then use the sequence dot next value in the insert statements. So that's how we used to insert the value of the sequence. But now uh, Oracle has provided, in fact, I think other relational databases also has similar kind of functionality. The syntax might be here and there, but it generates the sequence number or the identity column. It is called as identity columns for us. So we'll just look into this example. So we have three different kinds of syntaxes. So we'll cover all these three syntaxes of identity columns. So first is create table. We'll create the table. Okay. Now here the ID column, it's a number, and you can see it is generated always. So this is the one of the syntax again as identity, and it's a primary key. So what will happen because of this? So we have three different kinds of scenarios. So first is I am providing the value. What will happen here? When I'm saying generated always, it means you cannot pass any value. See, it will give the error, right? Cannot insert into a generated always identity column because Oracle will itself generate the values. You need not provide these values. Now what happens if I am passing a null value? Let's see. Again, it's the same error, right? So you cannot pass any kind of value when I'm saying generated always. Basically, you cannot have ID column in the insert statement. Now the third one, it will run. Okay, the one row is inserted, and if I look into this, yeah, let me insert one more row. See, it's incremented. Okay, automatically. We'll look into the metadata of identity columns in the next section, but I'll cover the different types of identity columns here first. Now moving on to the next one, like the first one was generated always. Now we have generated by default on null as identity. So what it says is it will generate by default first. Okay, suppose if I'm not passing any value, then it will generate, and even on null. Okay, by default on null as identity. For null also it will generate. So I'll first create the table. We'll look into the example. It will make things simpler. So now in generated always, these two rows had or these two insert statements had failed. But in case of generated by default on null, it will work fine. Let's see. See, one row is inserted. Now I'm passing the null value. Okay, because it is generated by default on null. So either I'm passing the value, either I'm passing null. It will work. Okay, the two rows are inserted, and it will work even in this case. See, I should see three rows in the table. Let's verify. See, the first one I had passed value 10. Second one I had passed null, so it used the sequence and it started with 1. Second one, it is as good as I'm passing null or I'm not passing any value. Then it picked up the next sequence number, which was 2. So this is how the generated by default on null works. The third one is generated by default as identity. The only difference between first and second and third is it is generated by default. It is also generated by default. It will generate for the null values, the second one, this one, but it will not generate for the null values. We'll just verify this once again. Okay. Now, will this work? Yes, this will work. I can pass a value. Generated by default means I can pass a value. Will this work? No. See, you cannot insert null into because I have not put that condition of generated by default on null. Okay, either I can pass or either I don't pass the value. So in that case only it will work. If I'm passing null, then I'll get the error. Now this particular part. Okay, again we have this. Third one works fine. Here. Okay, so we have three different kinds of syntaxes for identity column. It's very important to understand this. generated by default on null, and then I have generated always. What happens in generated by default? No ID column in insert. Sorry, it's in always. So no ID column in insert statements. Simple. In generated by default, the third one that we checked, no null value for ID column. The two things will work: pass non-null value or no ID column in insert statements. Okay, and third one is all the three scenarios work fine. So you can basically pass null, pass non-null, or no ID column in insert statements. I hope this identity column section is clear. There are three types that we need to understand. We'll dig deep into the behind working or the behind logic of the identity column in the next section. Now, if I want to find out the details of the identity column, okay, then how do I do that? So we have some views, data dictionary views. So first is the user tab calls, okay, and this is the important column where you would find the column name. So this is the dictionary view where you get the columns of all the tables, and then whether that column is an identity column or not. So that is understand from this flag. Yes. So I just run this. Okay, as you can see, we have these three tables, and for us, all the three tables had this column ID as identity column. So behind the scenes, what Oracle does is it creates a sequence. Okay, and as you can see, data default, and then this is the schema name, and this is the sequence name, and then next well. So this is how the user tab columns look. So you can identify this, but still, I want to see all the details and everything. So there is a special data dictionary view for identity columns. It is called as user tab identity calls. Okay, so here it is user tab calls. Here you just need to add identity, user tab identity calls, and the sequence data dictionary view that we already know, user underscore sequences. Okay, so here if I run this, okay, so we find all the tables here, the name of the column, which is the identity column, the sequence number which is used for that identity column, I can find it here, and all the details of that sequence is here. So you can do everything and anything that you would do with a normal sequence. So if I just take this value sequence, and if I run something like this, next 12 from dual, it should run. You can see here, right? So I'm able to fetch the values. So it's a sequence which is created by Oracle, and that is the naming convention is like this: I sequence dollar dollar, and then I think this is related to the object ID of the table, okay, or the sequence. I think. I hope this information was very useful. Uh, Thank you for watching the video. Thanks a lot, and have a good day. If you liked it, then please like the video, add some comments, and please subscribe the channel also. Thank you.